Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Back here to talk some more about World of Warcraft. Shadowlands is definitely the hot topic on the channel here recently. I'm getting more and more excited about the expansion as we continue to hear more and more about it. It doesn't mean I don't have my concerns and, can't see things that could potentially go horribly wrong, but, overall, I think we're weighing much more on the positive, optimistic side for right now, and cues we're getting from Blizzard, I think, are good so far. So in today's stream, we're going to be talking about the July 8th, which is today, Shadowlands update, VOD, or, well, it was a live stream, now it's a VOD. You can check it out on YouTube or Twitch. This was done with a little bit of an introduction by executive producer John Haidt, and then a big long, spiel from game director Ian Hazzikostas, like we normally get. So we got quite a bit of information about the expansion and what to expect. We got some updated details on things that we already knew about. We learned a few things that we didn't know about yet, and we got a lot more sort of light shed on things that we hadn't really heard too much about, but knew existed, prior to this live stream. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm actually really excited to get into it because there's a lot of things that I think are really interesting and really positive, even though they probably come with all kinds of issues. And I don't know, we're going to get into it. But before we get started, I just wanted to say thanks, everyone. Channel recently hit 5K subs. I've got a link in the description below to my 5K sub celebration video where I talk about what's going on with the channel and what to look forward to in the future. I also talk about how over the coming months I'm going to be giving away a copy of the Shadowlands expansion every month, either until the expansion launches or until like 5 months have gone by, whichever one is the shorter one. And how you can kind of sort of participate and possibly get one of those copies. So be sure to check that out. I also want to encourage everybody to jump into the Discord. There's an invite link in the description below. It's been massively updated. It was kind of just sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing, but I put a lot of time and effort into trying to revamp it and make it more friendly and more usable for people. There's still a lot of work to be done, but if you want to jump in, be a part of the community, chat with me off stream, just in general, leave a message that I'll get back to you on. You can jump into that as well. It's totally free to join, open to everybody. So I encourage you to hit that link and jump in there. As far as my little feedback interactive segment that I'm starting to try to do at the beginning of all my videos, there's a link to a poll in the description below as well. I am thinking about a live stream idea that I want to do over on Twitch, and I'm trying to get some feedback about it in general. So if you could hit that poll and throw a vote on there, probably take you a whole 10-15 seconds to read the question and drop an answer. It definitely helped me to kind of see if the idea I have is worth putting any time into. And speaking of Twitch, there's a link in the description below for my Twitch channel as well, trying to grow my subscribers on there and start doing some live streaming of all kinds of other stuff over there. So that's it. That's the big long spiel at the beginning. So we're going to get in and talk about stuff. Lowell Norton, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching the vid. I am doing okay. I will take just a moment for a little personal spiel real quick before we get into Warcraft. Things have been okay. Been pretty busy. I found out about a week and a half ago that my dad has coronavirus. And he's not in great health, and he was in a rough patch for quite a while, but seems like recently he has gotten a lot better. So hopefully that keeps trending upwards, and he continues to improve as we go on. So that's kind of the big thing in the background behind the scenes that's been going on with me, on top of just being busy doing all kinds of stuff. The new Path of Exile League has been dope, and I've been really enjoying playing that. So all right, let's jump in and talk about all this stuff. There's so much stuff. Okay, so first off, we got the announcement that the Shadowlands beta is going to start next week. I was hoping that they would be like, and if you pre-order, you can get guaranteed beta access, because I would have hit that button so fast so I can make content for you guys with that beta access. I don't know if I'll get it. Nothing like that was announced. They just said, hey, beta starts next week. We're going to send out invites, and we're going to continue to send out invites over the course of the summer. So Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'll get in. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But it's good news that we are moving on from the alpha to the beta. They basically said that for them, alpha means that the game is not quite feature complete. So they're still adding in systems and things that need to be put into the final form of the expansion. But moving into beta means that while there is definitely still iteration, fine-tuning, feedback to be gathered, all that kind of stuff, the game is essentially feature complete in the sense that it has all the key systems in there that they intend to be at launch. So what this really means with us going into beta next week is that we know what all the systems are for Shadowlands, barring any drastic feedback that causes them to totally change something. So with that in mind, like what do we know? We know that Mythic Plus is still going to be there for the dungeons. We're still going to have our usual dungeons and raids. We're going to have the Torghast, Tower of the Damned. We're going to have the Covenant system where you're, going to choose a Covenant at end game, and that's got a whole bunch of stuff going on with it, which we're actually going to talk about in this stream because we got a lot more details about Covenants and how all that is going to work. We got the Soulbinds system in there, the anima powers and Torghast, all the stuff we've been talking about on the new stream. That's basically it. That's what we have. We got a little bit of detail about the mall, which is the in-game zone for Shadowlands, but we didn't get like a whole ton of information. I don't know if there are actually systems that are going to come into play in the mall, but there's definitely a lot that we just don't know about. It might just be like a end-game questing zone. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, as well as we kind of go through the video and talk about everything. So yeah, beta starts next week. Hopefully we get in. We also got confirmation that they are going to release World of Warcraft Shadowlands in fall 2020. Now, we already kind of knew this. They had said that they were shooting for like a Q4 sort of launch. I was expecting the expansion to come out somewhere around October, November, or January, February. Usually they avoid the December, like expansion launch. Because holidays and all that stuff going on, December is just a crazy month for that. It looks like, given the fact that fall 2020, well, 2020 is in the title, so it's got to be coming this year. It is a pretty big time frame, right here on the Wowhead thing. It says September 22nd through December 21st is, fall. But, what Blizzard considers fall may be slightly different than that. But I'm thinking we could probably expect something either in October or November. So we're about, I would say, 3 to 5 months away from an expansion launch. And that puts us, I would say, at the least, we're looking at 2 months until some sort of pre-patch event. Unless beta is just like rock solid, but it looks like there's a lot of stuff they're going to need to test and figure out with beta. So I'm thinking maybe we might get a pre-patch in September or October, and then that's going to lead into an expansion launch in October and November, potentially. Either way, I'm hoping that we're going to have the expansion to play over the winter holiday season, even though I don't get any special holidays off, so it doesn't really matter when the expansion comes out. I'm just gonna have to roll my days off or take some leave or something anyway. So that's what I'm hoping for. We just got confirmation of basically what we already knew, but we did get that 2020 on there, so coming out this year. That's exciting. Yeah, and I can't imagine that it would be during the winter holidays. So hopefully we'll have it for those. For those of you who get that time off. You'll be able to go all hardcore and out-level me. Okay. We also got the announcement of the Shadowlands Physical Collector's Edition. So this comes with a bunch of stuff. It's got honestly quite a nice looking box. They showed this off in the video and it was pretty dope. I thought it made me almost want to order one. I don't have any collector's editions for anything WoW. I always just order the expansion. Maybe get the deluxe version if I like what's included. But this has a fancy box. It's got a mouse pad. Woo! I honestly don't even really like this artwork of the whole sky shattering thing. I really like the way it looks on the box, but that's more of like a color palette thing because you don't really see what's going on too much. But this particular like sort of key art that they're using for Shadowlands, I'm not even a big fan of. So to me, this mouse pad is ugly, but to each his own. You're going to get the World of Warcraft Shadowlands soundtrack. If you didn't know, if you got Spotify, all the WoW soundtracks are on Spotify, so you can just jam that there. But if you want the physical edition, I believe that's what this is. They didn't say it was. It could be a digital download for all I know. It does have an Art of World of Warcraft Shadowlands book, which I think is actually pretty cool. You guys know I'm a big fan of the art design and the design team for World of Warcraft, and I think they're one of the few teams on WoW that just continue to do an exceptional job and continue to put out great work. So there's bound to be a ton of sweet art in that book. And then also there is a pin collection with the symbol for each of the different covenants. So I believe we have Bastion, Maldraxxus, oh my goodness, the Night Fae? Yeah. And Venthyr are the pins here. And Ian made kind of a snide comment about, when you pick one of the pins, the other three explode, and you can't have them anymore. And I think that was in reference to the feedback they've been getting about the fact that, choosing a covenant probably is going to cause some issues. And I tend to agree with that sort of view. So we'll see. But anyway, that is the collector's edition. They did not announce a release date with the collector's edition, which was kind of weird, I guess. But it's going to be pretty expensive, like a typical collector's edition. It looks like about $165, somewhere in that ballpark, if that's what you want to pay for it. I won't be getting it, but the box looks really cool. Watch the video if you haven't seen it. It looks really good. Okay, so we're going to get in and talk about the actual developer update. I've got some notes here that were put up by Wowhead, but they don't kind of cover everything or show everything super well. So I'm actually going to pull up the YouTube video here, and we're not going to watch it or watch it with the audio on, but I am just going to kind of scroll through some of the main things. Try to get some of the slides that Ian talked about here on the screen for us so we can actually see. Here we go. So we got some stats for the alpha. Kinshi Jin, hi, pre-ordered the game, got the standard. Yep, that sounds good. Thanks for tuning in. You guys don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. All right, Shadowlands Alpha. So started 3 months ago. Over 800,000 quests have been completed. Over 2,000 people have played the Alliance version of Exile's Reach, which is the new Alliance beginner starting experience. I'm actually really looking forward to playing that once that's available, in the form I can play. Over 60,000 Torghast runs have happened, and over 11,000 of those were unsuccessful. And there've also been over 60,000 in-game bug reports. So just some cool stats about the alpha there. I think this was mostly put out there to show hey guys, here's all the data. Here's what we've been doing. We've been listening. Please, this isn't like BFA. Believe us. I really felt that in this video where they were trying to be it's not BFA. We're listening. We're doing things. We don't want to screw it up again. That vibe was in this video the whole time. So continued, valuable feedback. All right. And then Shadowlands beta. So this is what they said. Feature complete, but much work remains. The level cap is being increased to 60. So you're going to get your first look at in-game and what that looks like when you're actually max level and you're done with that, leveling process and you're into the real meat and potatoes of Shadowlands. They're going to send out lots more invites and it comes out next week. Okay, so then they got in and they talked about choosing the Covenant, and there was a couple of cool things here. The main one that really stood out to me that I liked was confirmation that as you play it through the leveling experience, you're going to go to each of the zones, you're going to get to experience each of the Covenants, you're going to get to borrow their Covenant ability, And then when you get to max level, you're going to pick one. So the key thing there for me, and I figured this would be the case, but we hadn't really gotten like solid confirmation, I don't think, that it was the case. But as you progress through, you're going to get to try all the Covenant abilities before you have to choose a Covenant. So that is the thing that makes the most sense to do, but I was happy to hear that confirmation. So when you start out leveling, you're going to be in, Bastion with the Kyrian faction, and you're going to get to borrow the Bastion or the Kyrian Covenant ability for your class and play with that while you're there, and then move along to whatever the next zone is. I think it's the Rivendreth one, and you'll get to use the Venthyr power while you're there, and continue on and test them all out, see which one you like the most, or that kind of stuff, and then choose one. So obviously playing through the zones and getting to interact with the Covenant is going to help you with your choice, but I really just wanted that confirmation, like you're going to get to play with the ability and make sure that you like it before you agree. Now, personally for me, while I do think that the Covenant ability has a lot of weight to it in terms of possibly making my class feel a lot more interesting, I think that for me, it's going to come down more to the aesthetic and the sort of like lore and roleplay aspect of the Covenant as to which one I go on which character. So ultimately, if I'm playing Paladin, I already have it set in my head. Like my Paladin is going Kyrian. Like it matches, the like roleplay concept that I have. And I'm not someone who gets super into like actually role playing in the game. I just kind of like, I look at my character and I'm like, this is my character, and this, they don't have like a backstory or anything, but there's like a transmog scheme or theme or whatever, and that kind of stuff that all kind of flows together. And for me, the Kyrian aesthetic, it lines up with the Paladin, sort of persona that I've created in my head. And so even if I like the Necrolord ability the best for Paladin, I'm probably still going to go Kyrian. Now, for other people, I know they're going to choose ability first, no matter what. And so it's going to be really important to play those abilities. But, however you choose to join your Covenant, it's nice to know that you're going to have that capability there. So you're going to choose a Covenant. And then they went in to talk some more about the Covenant systems. And the first thing that they touched on was Soulbinds. Now, we actually have a lot of information about Soulbinds, and I'm going to be going in depth with these probably on the next news stream. I didn't want to do it here because there's so much to talk about, but we're going to touch on them a little bit. So the idea with Soulbinds is that once you choose a Covenant, you get access to that Covenant's Soulbinds. It doesn't sound like you get access to them all at once. There's at least one that you have to earn, and you probably have to do some little like mini quests for the other ones as well. But the idea is that the Soulbind concept is you linking your soul to someone else within that Covenant, some major figure. And they used the Rivendreth zone. Their name is escaping me so hard. Anyway, they used the Venthyr faction or Covenant as the example. So Nadja the Mistblade here, the idea is that her backstory directly ties into her Soulbinds, and the Soulbinds are a talent tree that you can go down, and along the way, you're able to choose these abilities that sort of fit her theme. So Nadja was a duelist, and she's now passed on. She's in Rivendreth. She's part of the Venthyr faction, and she's one of the Soulbinds you can link up to. So as you're going, if you choose to link with her, then as you go through this talent tree, you're going to find abilities that fit that duelist mentality, that fit with her persona, her past, her background. So in this case, we have Dauntless Duelist. It says the first enemy you damage in combat is marked as your adversary. You deal 4% more damage to them, and they deal 2% less damage to you. you can only have one adversary at a time. Now, mechanically, we don't know, like, if that, like, once you kill your adversary, do you automatically get another one, or do you have to leave combat and then re-enter combat, or, that kind of stuff. But you can see how, like, thematically that all fits together. And this is something I really like, I think is really cool. And this is the impression I'm getting from this entire, live stream, is that they have really tried to tie things together in a way that makes sense and fits what's going on. Like, it makes sense. Nadja was a duelist. She has this duelist talent that you can pick up. And you're going to see later as we get into it with the other covenants, they have other things that really just fit them. And it really does feel like in Shadowlands, you're going to choose this covenant that you can really dive deep into and feel like it's almost like a class. You know what I mean? Like, if you remember from Legion, we had the class halls, and they were all really unique, all really interesting. Well, maybe not all really interesting, but they all had their own flavor, and they really felt like, oh, this is the Demon Hunter class hall, this is the Warlock one, and that same kind of feel is carrying over through into these covenants. Now, you can see that there are some talents here that are sort of like filled in with the images. Those are the ones that are tied directly to Nadja. Along the way, you're going to be able to get, I forget what they call them, but you're going to be able to get little runes or whatever that you can plug into these empty slots along the way as you're filling out your talent tree. I think they're called conduits. And they basically said that conduits are going to be like relics from Legion. So in Legion, relics would just drop randomly off mobs. You could get them as rewards and stuff like that. And then you could use them to sort of power up your artifact weapon. Now, these conduits are going to be items that you can pick up and you can plug into these spaces. But the key takeaway here was that these talents that are tied to Nadja are non-class specific. Anyone who Soulbinds with Nadja is going to have access to those abilities. But your conduits that you pick up are going to be tied directly to your spec. So this is where you get a little bit more of some interesting tweaks to your class gameplay. We've got some examples of conduits, and for the most part, it looks like conduits enhance abilities that you already have, as opposed to give you brand new abilities. So this is where you get something like, and I'm totally making this up off the top of my head, but if you're a mage, maybe you get a conduit where when you plug it in, it says, your fireball is 2 times the size and deals double damage or something, right? And you can plug that into the conduit and you'll have that ability, as long as you have that soulbind and that conduit active. These conduits are tied to 3 different sort of themes. One is your throughput, which is your damage and your healing. One is defense, and the other is sort of utility. So they do have different themes, and you have to plug them into the right places. So let's say that you were going down this tree here. If you had that, big mega fireball conduit that I was just sort of talking about, that's something that would probably go into a throughput conduit. You can see the little cross swords here. So if you did follow the path they have here in the picture, you couldn't put it in here. This is like the defensive one, and this is the utility one. You'd have to wait till you got down here and then plug it in there. So this, I think, adds a lot of interesting choices to the Soulbinds, where you're going to have to not only choose the abilities that you want that are tied directly to the character, but you're also going to have to look at your pathing, and maybe you would rather have, this boot icon ability over here, but because you want that extra throughput conduit, you decide to take this skull one over here instead. So some interesting choices. Also, like I said, I looked at the Soulbinds before, and these character tied Soulbinds, some of the abilities, they actually do seem pretty interesting. They look pretty fun. And the nice thing about the Soulbind system is it's supposed to be something that's really flexible, that you can both respec the existing Soulbind that you have for a very nominal price. Ian really stressed that this wasn't going to be, something like respecking Azerite gear where it just increased in price every single time you did it. It was supposed to be something you know, some sort of fee to keep you from just doing it on a whim. But it was supposed to stay like really manageable, really affordable. But also on top of that, you're just supposed to be able to switch between Soulbinds, like full talent tree Soulbinds as you need to. And it was really emphasized like you should be able to change the Soulbind that you're using and the sort of spec that you've built out, the path that you've built out to suit what you're trying to do for that day. Like it shouldn't be a, hey, I'm locked into this for a week or anything like that. So really exciting stuff. Soulbinds is one of the things that I'm the most excited about. You know, it's like Soulbinds and Torghast, in terms of the mechanical systems that are going to be in Shadowlands, are the two things that I'm looking forward to the most. So lots of good details about the Soulbinds. A lot of them we kind of already knew, but we just got a lot of clarity about them. Let's see. Jumping back over to chat. What do you think of the Shadowlands? I think the Shadowlands look awesome. The Blizzard art team continues to do a great job on making things look fantastic. Let's see. Lowell says he has to head out now since it's 4:15. Glad I catch some of the stream. Thanks for tuning in and watch the VODs. How long have I been streaming for? Let's see. It's been about 25 minutes. Yeti, welcome to the stream. Thanks for tuning in. You guys don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. All right, so big details about Soulbinds. And this is just more stuff about that. Okay, so we got more information about the covenants. Now, this is some stuff that I can't remember if we actually saw any of this, but for the most part, for me, it's either brand new or so old I forgot about it. But basically, as you work with your covenant, you're going to earn renown. You basically earn renown by collecting anima, which is a resource that we see in Torghast. I believe you can also spend anima out in the Maw as well. But you're going to collect this anima, which is like the life force in the Shadowlands. And there's a drought going on. It seems like all the anima and stuff is being drawn into the Maw instead of staying out in these different zones where it's supposed to be. And so part of your goal in Shadowlands is to collect that anima for your covenant. As you do so, you're going to gain renown. And as you progress and gather that renown, you're going to earn these renowned milestones. So you can see here that there's one at level 6, 7, 11, 12, 14, and so on. And here at level 12, it says you will gain lost, I don't know how to say this name, Sybil, maybe, as an adventurer. So you actually get an adventurer by getting to this renown level. So there's a progression system tied to your covenant there as well. And this continues on in the form of your sanctum. Now, this is something I was kind of excited about. They alluded to the fact that this was sort of inspired a little bit by the garrison system from Warlords of Draenor, which I actually really, really liked a lot. Unpopular opinion, I know. But basically what they said is as you gather these resources, you're able to put them into your sanctum to basically restore the function of these buildings that are already there. So instead of like your garrison, you're kind of starting from scratch and you're just putting things down, building new stuff. It's more like in Shadowlands, since that anima has been taken away, you are bringing that anima back, and all these things that are run down and broken and don't have power or whatever, you're restoring them to full functionality. So as you progress through this, you're going to be able to take those resources and use them to restore different things for your sanctum. And one of the things that they mentioned was that within each zone specific to your covenant, there's going to be a like travel system that you could work on restoring. For example, in Ardenweald, the Night Fae have a like system of underground route travel that you'll be able to expand upon and rebuild. In Rivendreth, the Venthyr have a blood mirror system that basically will teleport you from one place to another. And so this is one of the things that you can actually work to restore as you progress through that like in-game content and gather anima. So this is really cool. They mainly just mentioned the movement one, but it looks like there are multiple things here. Didn't get a lot of details about what some of the other ones are, but that sounds pretty cool. I like that. The other thing that they said is that anima is not supposed to be a constant nonstop grind to acquire. So instead of it being something you just farm and farm and farm and farm and don't do anything else, it's supposed to be, you know, like, hey, you can get about this much in a week. Once you get that much, move on, do something else. And it's more of a staggered, measured progression. So that also sounds really nice, especially to someone who is definitely going to be playing alts. You know, being able to go, okay, knocked it out on this character, let me get to the next one, is good stuff. The next thing they talked about was restoring the flow of anima. Now, this is not the same as the like travel system that I just talked about, but basically, as you gather anima, there are going to be these points throughout the zone specific to your covenant, where you can basically restore that flow in order to upgrade like a sub-zone of the zone, if that kind of makes sense. So one of the easy examples they gave was, you know, in Ardenweld, there's just a big, vast forest. And because of this drought, there's all sorts of dead trees and all this kind of stuff. And so what you can do is take your anima and you can funnel it into one of those sub-zones where all the trees are dead and stuff. And because that anima is being restored, it could actually like bring that zone back to life. And instead of seeing dead trees and everything, you see a flourishing forest. And at the same time, you get like world quests and bonus quests and activities and stuff in that area for as long as that flow of anima continues to go in there. And they mentioned that you're also going to be able to eventually permanently restore the flow of anima to that zone, which will keep it in that state and give you permanent access to those quests and activities. Now, this is something that I think sounds super cool, because what it means is if you choose to go Night Fae, you know, once you have this flow of anima restored, you're going to have this quest zone that's unique to you and the other people who have chosen the Night Fae Covenant. If I'm playing in the Venthyr Covenant and I go over to Ardenweld, those forests are going to be dead to me. I'm not restoring the flow of anima to those zones, so they're going to be different. And I think this is a kind of an interesting way to split up like the world quest population, I think. I mean, you're obviously going to have world quests to do in every zone, but I think it's a really interesting concept. And I really like the idea of seeing actual change to the world through what you do and how you progress in the end game. I absolutely loved seeing the graphic upgrades to the Warfront zones that we had in Battle for Azeroth. I thought that was great. And this isn't quite the same thing, but it is nice. It's like, you know, if you're playing on a low-level character and you go over to Darkshore, then it looks, you know, like the old Darkshore. But once you get up to the point where you get through the quests and everything, you get that brand new, like, spiffy-looking Darkshore. And this is kind of the same thing. You know, if you've chosen this faction and you restore that flow of anima, you have a zone that looks totally different, that other people aren't going to see, except this time it's now like other in-game players aren't going to see. I don't know how that's going to work in terms of like grouping up with your friends who have, you know, different covenants than you, and maybe you're in an area where you've restored the flow of anima for your covenant and they haven't. Maybe it'll just be one of those situations where they just can't do the quest because they're not in the same like instance. I don't know how all that's going to work mechanically, but it's a cool concept. I like it a lot. And you can see here in the screenshot, it says channel anima to the forest ward, allowing you to fight an enemy champion. Now, I think it's more than that, like not just fight the enemy champion, but that's kind of like the big highlight, the big feature. Checking in on chat again. I'm going to watch the VOD, need to learn all this stuff. Awesome. Have a good one. Gamer Anonymous. Seeking your inputs on Collector's Edition versus Complete Edition. I am a new player, and if I purchase the Collector's Edition now, would I be emailed the digital key so that I can start with BFA and Classic? Well, I can't say for sure. All I can tell you that is in the past there have been issues with ordering like the collector's edition, and like the code for it sometimes has been in the box. I think they recently have started like emailing stuff as well. If you're a new player, I don't know. Like if it was me, if you're asking me for my personal advice, I wouldn't get the collector's edition. I would get some form of digital edition, whatever you think looks the best. If you just want to try out WoW, just get the base edition. If you want and you like some of the fancy stuff that comes with the digital deluxe and stuff like that, go ahead and get that. But I don't know. Just me on a personal level, I wouldn't worry about the physical collector's edition anyway. And yeah, you should be able to like to start playing. You just have to have the you've got to have a subscription anyway, so you're still gonna have to pay for that one way or the other. Yet he says he has 11 120s. Nice. I have 12. 12. No, I guess 11 because I still haven't maxed my priest. How does that work with world PvP though? Will others be phased out? Exactly. That's the thing. They didn't mention that aspect of it. Kind of scooted right by it. But you know, world questing, world PvP, those are all good questions about how that's going to work with this sort of what sounds like it's going to be a instanced sort of system. Okay, so next they talked about mission tables, the most exciting thing in WoW. No, I'm just kidding. So this wasn't too bad, okay? The mission table is back. It's coming back again for Shadowlands. I think we expected it. I was kind of hoping they would just be like, nah, we're good. I basically did nothing with the mission table in BFA. Like at this point, I was just totally disengaged with it. And honestly, if they had done a repeat, I probably would have just straight up ignored it completely for Shadowlands. But they kind of admitted like, hey, we know that, you know, the mission tables are not the like craziest thing. We don't want them to be a major part of what you're doing. They should be like a fun side activity. And kind of the niche they see them filling is being a form of offline progression, right? So a way to keep you engaged with the game when you can't actually sit down at your computer and play the game. So the mission tables are coming back, but they have kind of said that they are reimagining the system. And instead of you just kind of plugging in party members and going, yep, I win, no, I lose, they're trying to make it a little bit more interesting in the sense of like you're going to be using an actual party of like DPS and healer and a tank, and it's going to be turn-based. There were not a lot of details given about this, but I will say that overall, based on what Ian said about the new mission table, I'm at least interested to see what they do. It didn't sound totally stupid. I still don't know if I'm going to care ultimately in the long run. But I don't know. I think it depends. Like my question is, they said it's going to be kind of turn-based, but then it's also supposed to be sort of an automated offline progression. So I don't know how that's going to work. You know, if you can just do auto battles, if you can't actually play, but if you want to, you can actually do the turn-based thing. One of the things they mentioned is they wanted to give you a little bit more agency over your outcomes. And maybe that is the case. If you just want to like auto battle your way through and just roll the dice and see whether you win or not, then cool. If you want to actually take the time to play out every turn in a given scenario and like try to use your smarts to win, maybe a situation that you might not have on an auto battle, then maybe that's what you do. I don't know. Those kind of details weren't there. So we'll have to see. It looks like the mission table is also tied into your covenant, as opposed to it just being a broad system where everybody has the same thing. They didn't actually come out and say that, but it was in with the covenant system. You could see here, this looks like the Venthyr one. Most of the characters that are in this picture are like Venthyr faction characters. So we'll have to see. It's a mission table. Here's a little bit of a bigger picture in case you want to take a look at that. And you can kind of see here on the side where it's like a combat log, where it's like bony skeleton was hit for shadow damage. Blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know. It looks weird. I honestly don't like this interface either. I don't know if this is just like the Venthyr theme, but I don't like it. They also mentioned that the mobile app would be getting an update with Shadowlands as well, so that you could do your missions on there. All right, so then we got Covenant Sanctums, and these were kind of out of the blue, but they're interesting. So you obviously have a lot going on with your Covenant in terms of the big in-game picture. But they mentioned that each Covenant also has a unique feature that kind of serves as a mini game, a side hustle, something you can do that isn't necessarily directly tied in with like your end game power and progression, but is a part of your Covenant, its flair, its flavor, and that there would be some sort of rewards tied to it where you could get like loot or maybe a new champion or something like that. But these are supposed to be totally different for each Covenant. So once again, really like the Covenant system is deep. It's not choosing a Covenant is not a shallow choice, based on what we've seen in this live stream. It's a big deal. It unlocks a lot of unique content for you. So in the Venthyr Covenant, you have the Ember Court, and this basically sounds like a kind of like a simulation minigame. You're throwing parties for royalty. There go my dogs. I'm trying to spare you from my dogs. All right, so it sounds like a sort of simulation experience where you're throwing a party for nobility, and you have to like choose the activities that are going on in the party, choose who to invite, choose what sort of food to serve, that kind of stuff. And based on how that all plays out, you could get some cool loot. So that sounds like an interesting sort of side thing to do. Kyrian, you have the Path of Ascension, which is basically where you start out and you can assume the persona, the perspective of a particular soul that's tied to the Covenant. And then you can play through these different scenarios where you kind of go through like an arena style challenge, a very combat focused, combat heavy experience. And you can actually bring in different powerful souls and fight them. And I guess it sounds like basically you're going to be able to earn them to use for like your mission table, maybe. But yeah, it's supposed to be really combat heavy. The Necrolords have the Abomination Factory, where essentially this sounds kind of like a weird sort of like matchmaking system. Kind of. So there are souls that are going to be out there, and you're going to get to know these souls and learn what they like and they don't like and everything. And you're going to create a like flesh puppet sort of thing for the soul to inhabit. So you're going to figure out, okay, this person I think should be in a ghoul's body. This one should be in an abomination's body. And I don't know. It sounded so weird. And it just made me think of like a weird dating sim or something, but in a creepy way. So you have to listen to Ian's description of this one, but I don't know. I was actually really interested about it. And I don't know like how deep that goes, but it sounds like, I don't know. You're just going to be making creatures and fitting souls into them and trying to like max the compatibility ratings. Super weird. And then the Night Fae has the Queen's Conservatory, which is basically a garden. If you played the farm in Mist of Pandaria, then you have a decent idea kind of what's going on here in the Queen's Conservatory. But instead of farming vegetables, you're actually trying to nourish souls. And so you have this whole garden concept going on where you're taking these souls and you're planting them, because the idea behind Ardenweld and the Night Fae is that in that zone, this is where souls go to sort of be regenerated in order to be reborn into the actual world of Warcraft, as opposed to the Shadowlands. And so that's kind of what you're doing there. So a bunch of interesting systems that are tied to these Covenant sanctums. And these are all kind of like side activities that you do. And I think these sound really interesting. I think all of them, I want to see how they pan out. I don't know what the depth of these is going to be. They could be pretty shallow experiences. I don't know. But if they're even remotely deep, then I think they're going to be a lot of fun. They talked about the last dungeon, the Theater of Pain. I've been trying to avoid the lore and stuff behind the dungeons in general, just because I want to experience that for myself firsthand. They did talk about it a little bit. It's a big battle royale. But we're going to skip that for right now. They did talk about the Maw a little bit, and basically what they said is that they really wanted to capture the experience of the Maw being a place that is not friendly to you. It's very hostile. And so in the Maw, you basically go in and you start to do things, and as you do, you draw the attention of the jailer, who's the big bad of the expansion. And if you draw too much attention, then he's going to kick you out, essentially. You're going to gain that attention. And basically, they wanted it to be like the Maw is... nothing is friendly to you. Like, when they were saying this, I was imagining Argus from Legion, where it's like you couldn't run anywhere without everything aggroing you. And it was absolutely, like, frustrating. I don't know. That's what I thought of. I don't know if that's what they're doing here, but they were like, this is not friendly. And I was like, well, Argus was not friendly, so maybe it'll be like that. But, you know, they mentioned, like, it's not going to be flight paths everywhere and inns for you to, you know, tie your Hearthstone to you and, like, all that kind of stuff. The Maw doesn't want you there. You aren't supposed to be there as a living person, but also, like, they just don't want you there anyway. They did mention that the Maw is sort of inspired by the more sandboxy content that World of Warcraft has had, and the most recent comparison to that would be Mechanome and Mechagon Island. And essentially, like, it's not going to be a zone where you wander in and you just see a bunch of, like, world quests and stuff, and you go around and you're like, yep, this is what I do, that's what I do. It's going to be more of a, like, you kind of head to this place and you discover content to do and things to do as you go. So much more of a exploratory experience compared to the traditional, like, just go do the world quest content, which is what it sounds like the various Covenant zones are going to be. So it sounds like right from the beginning of Shadowlands, you're going to have a good mix of that. And this is something that I really like, and I see as a very positive aspect to Shadowlands, that once you hit in-game, you're already going to have the, like, Covenant systems to play and get into. And in those Covenant zones, you're going to have that traditional world questing experience for the people that like that. You're going to have the Maw, where you get that sandboxy Mechagon experience, where you go in and you kind of like, well, what do I do here? And you're also going to have Torghast, where you have this crazy roguelike experience where you can get in and do crazy stuff with your class that you can't normally do out in the other content. On top of having the dungeon content, the Mythic Plus, and the initial raid, which will probably be out like a month or two after the expansion launches. They did show a video of, like, the Maw in motion. That's worth checking out inside of here. These are some of the clips from it. I think it looks pretty interesting. Some of the characters actually look pretty sick. Some of the armors look pretty awesome. And then they talked about the road ahead and kind of what they're looking at, what's coming up, what they're trying to test with the beta. So Castle Nathria is the first raid. They're going to be doing raid testing for that. They want to get a Mythic Plus into the hands of testers so that they can get that checked out as well. Currently with just the regular Mythic Plus affixes. Later on, they're going to introduce the first sort of seasonal affix for Shadowlands and get testing done on that. Legendary rune crafting, we'll talk about in just a minute. Covenant campaigns, we'll also talk about. Focused PvP testing, so basically PvP testing with all the Shadowlands stuff in. Soulbinds, legendaries, Covenant abilities, everything. And also character copies and end-to-end testing, so getting your characters copied over and playing from playing as if Shadowlands just came out, and you're going to take your character and progress to the end game that way. So jumping over to legendary rune crafting, they said that you're going to meet someone in the mall, and that person is basically a sort of legendary smith. And the idea behind the concept here is that a lot of the epic legendary weapons in World of Warcraft have actually kind of leaked over from the Shadowlands. And so this legendary smith is going to be able to help you find or craft these legendaries, and that the legendaries could be things we've seen in the past from old legendaries. They could be things that we've seen as legendary powers or Azerite powers or artifact powers previously. They could be some of the effects that we get from Torghast that you'd be able to have permanently outside of Torghast, and brand new stuff that's related to Shadowlands specifically. So basically, the door is wide open for where these legendary effects can come from. They also mentioned set bonuses and stuff from previous tier sets and things like that. So all kinds of stuff. And one of the big things they mentioned with legendary rune crafting is that it's not random. So basically, you can target what you want to get. They said that they realized that one of the negative experiences from Legion and the Legendaries was seeing a epic legendary in a live stream or a video, and then there was no way for you to go out and try to get that yourself other than to hope and pray that you got a legendary to drop and that it was the right one. So they're definitely going full force right from the get-go with these legendaries being something that you can target. So you can take a pair of bracers for your appropriate armor class. So if you're playing Death Knight, you take some, plate bracers there. You could take it to the smith and they can rune craft it into the legendary that you want. So the whole idea is that you can target the legendary that you want, get the resources and stuff that you need for it, craft it, and then focus on the next one. Also, for the most part, the legendary rune crafting, I believe, is going to be tied to Torghast. And this was something that they mentioned as well for Torghast, which was awesome. So they mentioned that they had gotten a lot of feedback about how people wanted to run Torghast as much as possible. They wanted the experience to be unlimited. They were very concerned, very worried about there being caps and keys that you needed to get in, and you could only run Torghast, 3 times because you could only get 3 times, 3 keys per week, that kind of stuff. And prior to this, they had sort of split Torghast in 2, where there was one wing of Torghast where you would just run it a couple times a week or whatever. That's where you would get your legendary materials. Then you would be done with that. And then you would go over into the other portion of Torghast where you could run that unlimited as much as you wanted for transmog effects and things that weren't tied directly to your player power. And in the live stream, they mentioned that they're not doing that at all. The keys are gone. You can run either experience for Torghast as much as you want. You can run it unlimited amounts. And that is so great. That was one of the most frustrating things about the visions system from BFA is okay, I can only earn enough stuff to do this 3 times a week. Earning the currency to do it is a super crazy grind to get these keys. And they literally said keys are gone. You can run Torghast as much as you want. I don't know if there's going to be still some sort of currency requirement or whatever to do that, but it sounds like they are really focused on trying not to gate Torghast either behind some expensive entry requirement or a limited number of runs per week. So that is great. They said, hey, we're going to figure out how to balance this, based around that being what we're going to let you do. So that was like just the next level on all the good stuff they've been doing with Torghast, which is one of the big reasons that I've gotten more and more excited about Shadowlands. The next thing here, Covenant campaigns. So in BFA, we had the Horde and Alliance war campaigns, which were all right. But basically, every Covenant is going to have their own lore campaign, like the war campaign. And they said that the scale of the Covenant campaigns was going to be the same scale as the war campaigns. So war campaigns had a lot going on for the two different factions, and we're getting that same quantity of content for 4 different Covenants this time around. So that's a lot of stuff, and man, it's just more on top of more icing on top of the Covenant cake, right? Just more stuff going on. And I think that kind of covers the live stream and the content that was in it and the bulk of what they mentioned. So this kind of brings us back around to my thoughts on the system, which I'm going to jump into after I check chat here in just a second. Let's see. Yeti, love your tanking guides, by the way. So good, dude. Legit just came across them. Awesome, thank you. Catalog says, just want to let you know, because your Vengeance guide learned how to tank. I will now be maining it in Shadowlands after 14 years of BM Hunter. Hell yeah. Sweet. Theory VP. Oh my goodness, it's Theory. Been so long since I caught a stream. Hope you've been well. Theory, oh my goodness. It's good to see you. Awesome. And Arxie says hello. Can't stay, just wanted to appreciate your content. We'll watch tomorrow. Good night. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. Anybody watching, don't forget to like the stream if you're enjoying it. All right, so let's talk about a little bit. I've kind of covered most of my thoughts here about the expansion, but I wanted to touch on a couple of takeaways that I had from the live stream. Stop distracting me. So it's right there. Go away. I already have this dog distraction. Now I got a wife distraction.
I want to do a point, but they knocked me over.
Anyway, some of my takeaways from the live stream here. So the number one takeaway that I had was, oh crap, I have to main 4 characters. Because these Covenant systems are so deep. I just can't imagine just playing a single Covenant. With all the stuff that's going into it, like the unique Soulbinds, the Covenant ability, if it was mainly the ability, whatever. I can pass on that. But you've got the Covenant ability, you've got the transmogs, you've got the progression through rebuilding your Covenant sanctum, you've got the progression through the flow of anima and restoring the zones and all that stuff. You've got the little mini game side hustle sort of system that's in there. You got the Covenant campaign, you got all the transmogs, the mounts, all that. There's so much tied into these Covenants, and I just can't imagine playing just one of them. And it was the same thing I did in BFA. When BFA came out, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to main 2 characters. I'm gonna have to play a Horde character and an Alliance character so I can experience both sides of this story. Now, ultimately for me, BFA didn't pan out because I really wasn't interested. I've basically never been interested that much in the Horde Alliance conflict, and I thought there would be a lot more to it than that, but that's basically what it was. So it overall wasn't super interesting to me. But everything going on in Shadowlands, I don't know, the video for Shadowlands, the BlizzCon trailer, was not impressive to me because honestly, I'm just sick of Sylvanas. I like Sylvanas as a general, World of Warcraft character, I'm not super crazy about her or anything, but I think she's fine. I'm just sick of her and this whole like thing that's been going on with her. It feels like the plot thread with her has just been going on so long, and I'm just tired of it. So I wasn't excited about the Shadowlands trailer. And honestly, I don't know that I care about what's going on with in the Maw, or care about what's going on with Sylvanas, or any of that kind of crap. But the stories of these covenants and what's going on in the Shadowlands itself, outside of all that, I actually do think is pretty interesting. We're getting a lot of stuff that feels new to World of Warcraft, and I like that. And so for me, I played the Horde and the Alliance character in BFA, and I don't know if it really felt worth it. It felt worth it to be able to experience the leveling zones from the perspective of the characters that leveled there, because obviously playing through like the opposite faction content for the war campaign and for like World Quest is definitely not the same as playing through the actual content leveling. So that experience I thought was good in BFA, but the rest of it, it didn't really matter to me. It wasn't that engaging, that interesting. Covenants appear to be like the total opposite of that, where I can just imagine seeing a video of someone who's like restored Ardenweld to its full glory through the anima path system or whatever, and just going, oh, I can't experience that actually in game myself. Like I really want to. I want to see that version of the zone, and getting to do these fun mini games and side quests and all that stuff. Like I can't picture not getting to do that. Now, obviously, I won't end up playing all those characters like the same amount. I'll probably have 1 or 2 characters that I play a lot, but I feel like I'm going to need to have like 4 characters that I'm actively engaged in playing during Shadowlands, which might be a good thing. If the expansion is good, then, I'm going to want to have that motivation to play. And this is one of the things that they talked about is like, if you play through Shadowlands, the leveling content, obviously that's going to be the same character to character, but if you get on an alt and you pick a different covenant, that in-game experience should be drastically different from what you're already doing on that other character. And that's something I think that is honestly more alt-friendly than a lot of other expansions have been, because with leveling like 12 characters, that's one of the things, like by the time you get to character 8, you're like, please, just give me anything to do that's different. How can I level this character differently? Can I do anything differently at the end game? I've done this war campaign 8 times. And so I think that actually makes it really alt-friendly. And that was one of my big takeaways, was that I'm going to need 4 different main characters so that I can play through each of these covenant systems. And obviously I'm gonna level everything up to max, except maybe Priest. We'll see. We'll see how Priest does. But I don't know. It's not looking good based on the changes that have been happening or not happening on the alpha so far. We'll have to see. But I'm going to level everything up so that I, can make guides and stuff. And that's just what I do. But yeah, I'm going to have to play at least 4 of them pretty regularly to play through the covenant system. One of my other big takeaways was that you could tell that they know that they screwed the pooch during BFA's alpha, beta time frame, and that they are doing everything they can to avoid the same mistake. I don't know what the issue was with BFA. I don't know if they just thought that they had everything together and they didn't need player feedback or what, but that is not what they're doing now. They're basically trying to launch the expansion in beta, get everything sorted out so that when they actually launch and everybody can get in, they don't have the issues that they did in BFA. And you could see them constantly alluding to that in their comments, in their in the way that they present information. It's definitely there. So I take that as a positive note. It doesn't mean that there won't be issues. I'm positive there are going to be so many issues in Shadowlands. Like when you have this many layers, something's bound to be screwed up. So I don't expect Shadowlands to be a perfect expansion. I don't expect it to be well balanced. I don't expect it to be without a myriad of issues. I'm sure it'll have all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of interesting stuff, both for gameplay and just for being engaged in general in the game, I think. And so the big takeaway, outside of that, I'm going to need 4 characters, for me is that I think I'm really, really going to enjoy Shadowlands just based on that amount of variety that's available. That's one of the things that gets me in World of Warcraft quite often, is everything is the same. You get to a certain point on your characters where it feels like the only thing that's worth keeping you interested in the game anymore is the next dungeon or the next raid. And in between that, you're leaning really hard on your class being fun, and they haven't done a great job of that in BFA in particular. And so that ends up with a sort of like dry, uninteresting, expansion to play in. And it just looks like there's going to be a lot to do. Already I can see that, leveling up one time on Horde in BFA and then one time on Alliance. And then when you get to in-game, it's basically the same thing, but it's just a mirror of each other. Means that you run out of interesting stuff to do pretty quickly, I think. In this case, you're going to be leveling up and you hit Covenant 1, then Covenant 2, then Covenant 3, then Covenant 4. But when you're in those covenants, you've got the different stories. You're changing the way the zone looks. You've got these different Soulbinds systems. You just have access to all this stuff that isn't a direct mirror of every other covenant, right? So even in BFA, it's like if there was a talent tree for something, like you basically had the exact mirror of it for the other faction. They might change the name, they might change the icon, but it's basically the same thing. And that's definitely not the case. If you get into the Soulbind system and take a look, you'll see that it's vastly different. There's not like, oh, here's the, teleport skill here for Ardenweald, and here's the teleport skill for Kyrian. No, there might be movements, abilities or something, but they're vastly different from each other. And so just jumping from that, like, 2 barely different watery in-game systems to 4 what looks like pretty robust systems already has me like really excited and really optimistic about at least the initial months of Shadowlands. So that's my takeaway. And yeah, that's it. That's going to be it for this stream. I didn't want to go to a 2-hour stream this time. We're going to be back next week for another stream where I think we're going to look a little bit more in depth at the Soulbind system specifically, unless we get some more interesting news between now and then. I want to remind everybody to check the description below. There are all kinds of links. There's a link to Twitch, trying to get more subs on there. There's a link to the channel Discord. I encourage you to join. It's massively been updated and improved. And yeah, hopefully you're going to jump in and enjoy that. Also, I have a poll below. I am thinking about an idea for a new live stream and trying to get some feedback about that. If you could leave a vote on that if you get the chance. Probably take you a whole 10-15 seconds to do that. And then there's also a link to my 5K sub celebration video. In there I talk about the future of the channel, what's coming up. Also talk about how you could possibly get a copy of Shadowlands. I'm giving away some copies of Shadowlands between now and release, and the details about how to possibly get one of those is in there as well. I want to thank everybody for joining me in the video. I appreciate it. I think everybody who's tuning in during this time where, honestly, I don't have a lot of actual gameplay content to put out there for you guys, but I'm doing my best trying to give you my commentary, my thoughts, give you a little bit of insight into whatever I can related to World of Warcraft, and hope you're having a good time. Hope you're staying engaged, and I hope you'll join me on the next news video. So, thanks everybody. Hope you have a good night. Stay safe out there, and hope you're enjoying whatever it is that you're doing. As always, I'll see you on the next video. Just reading chat. This is the bonus round. Trying to relive the Lich King days. I don't know about that. I don't know if they're trying to really relive the Lich King days. I mean, I think the smart thing to do is to pull in, I mentioned this before, the smart thing to do is pull those big characters from past expansions back and get the hype. And this one doesn't scream like Lich King, but I mean, he's sort of involved at least a little bit. But I think the thing that they're doing with Shadowlands that's really cool is there's just a lot of new stuff. Like, obviously, they're going to reuse some assets, some monster models, and that kind of stuff. But the Shadowlands feels kind of alien in a way that even something like Argus didn't. You know, even though it literally was in outer space. And that's because in Argus, like, you were still fighting the Burning Legion. And the Burning Legion was present in the base game. It was a big part of the Burning Crusade. You know, all throughout the expansions, the Burning Crusade has kind of been there in some form or another. And so we got to Legion, and yeah, they pulled back Illidan, and they got that big oomph, like, you know, huge, like, fangirl moment or whatever from the player base. And that was great, but even going to like Argus, even dealing with like the Titans and stuff like that, it all felt very established world of Warcraft, because I mean, Titans have been a thing for a while. A lot of the enemies that we fought were things we had seen before. And we got to battle for Azeroth, and they did a couple of interesting things. You know, we had Druskvar with sort of the Wicker Beast thing. That was an interesting new sort of aesthetic that they put in there. But then you had like Stormsong Valley, which is, you know, very like traditional World of Warcraft. You had some other stuff like in there. Even, you know, in Zuldazar, like the troll area, you know, that's very like, we've done it before. The Blood Trolls that was an interesting aesthetic. And then in Vol'dun, I mean, we've done the desert thing before too. Having the Volpera and the what are the snake people called? I can't remember, even though I really want them as an allied race. There was some stuff there, but I would say like overall, like 75% of what you saw in Battle for Azeroth was a upgrade, a variation on what we had seen previously. And I think in Shadowlands, there's a lot of, at least aesthetic and lore-wise, a lot of stuff we just haven't really seen. Like Rivendreth, you know, it's got that whole like vampire Castlevania thing going on. And I can't say that we've never seen anything like that. I feel like Karazhan kind of had that vibe, maybe a little bit, but it's definitely like full blown here. And on top of that, for every single like covenant and zone, they're introducing like a multitude of new races that we've never seen. And a lot of them, the cool thing is they don't look like variations on what we've seen before. They're like brand new things. It's like take the Volpera and the Slytherin. No, that's Harry Potter. Oh, what are they called? I can't remember. But you know, take the Blood Trolls, you know, how we kind of got some unique models and some really unique twists on some models we'd already seen. And that's just like blown out of the water in Shadowlands. There's so many new things. Like Bastion is like totally new. I don't think we've seen really anything like the aesthetic of Bastion in World of Warcraft before. This whole like sort of Greek Roman Mount Olympus sort of aesthetic is something that feels totally new. Maldraxxus, you know, I compared the zone look of that. It looks kind of like Plaguelands and stuff. But once I got a chance to look at some of the models and everything, the models in there are just awesome. They look sweet. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in Shadowlands, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons I'm excited about it, is because there's so much new. And maybe it's not new gameplay systems. You know, we still got world quests, we still got dungeons, we still got raids and all that kind of stuff, but there's so much that is outside of the established theme, the established aesthetic, the established like factions and stuff that we've had in World of Warcraft over multiple expansions, that to me it feels really fresh. Even though the systems, like I said, might not be super fresh and they might be iterations on things we've seen before, just as a whole, like I'm going to dive in. I'm not worried about, how this is going to play 4 or 5 months from now. I just want to experience this, this leveling progression from the start of my character to end game, and then maybe get into some of that Covenant stuff. It feels like everything throughout that process, there's going to be so much stuff that even as someone who has played World of Warcraft for years, I'm going to be able to go, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's neat. Oh, I like that they did that. Oh, I see how they changed that there. Oh, that's a cool landscape. That's a cool vista. Or, man, I really like this new race they put in. Or even some of the armors. Like, some of the armors look generic and copied as hell, but some of the ones we've seen look pretty cool, look pretty sweet. I mean, but I just think there's going to be the potential for a lot of those moments, and I'm seeing a lot of those moments just watching trailers, like zone previews and stuff, where I go, oh, that's something we never seen before. I don't know. So I don't know if they're reliving the Wrath of the Lich King days, but I think it's a little more than that, and maybe that's one of the biggest reasons I'm excited. Is I feel like, as someone who has played WoW for years and years and years and years, the lore, the zone, and everything that's going on in Shadowlands has a potential to give me those moments of, oh, that's neat, that I don't feel like I've had in a long time. Even in BFA, like, Vol'dun is probably my favorite zone in Battle for Azeroth, just because they did a desert and I don't think they'd really done one since Cataclysm. There was kind of one in WoD, maybe. I don't know, but it's just a really nice dungeon. But even that, I was like, oh yeah, this is a really good version of a desert. I wasn't like going around like, oh, that's new. Oh, that's new. I think there's one spot in Vol'dun that was like that for me, and it's that little, like, right in the center of the zone, there's like dip down into the valley that actually is kind of a little oasis and has the cave and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's neat. But those moments for me have like drastically decreased over the year, even though I still can really appreciate what's going on. And I'm just really looking forward to that in Shadowlands. I'm looking forward to live streaming that gameplay and having those moments with those of you who are there to watch and stuff. So anyway, that was a huge encore. I don't know what you would call that. Random stream of thought thing there at the end. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.